Flash mobs, gathered through Facebook and texting, in cities from Los Angeles to London, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Kansas City, Chicago, and Germantown, Maryland. They appear suddenly, like brigands from a bad brigadoon. They wreak havoc, steal candy and beer and high-tech gear. They set fires, throw punches, fracture skulls, then vanish quickly as they came. Why do they do it? How can we stop them? To answer these and other questions, I've assembled a flash mob of 3, including my friend Bill Whittle from Los Angeles, California, and from Monument, Colorado, Stephen Green. Men, I see you received my text message. Now let's make some quick work of this. Bill, seriously, this is scary stuff. And most of the focus has been on why these usually young black men, and typically boys, seem to throw off all restraint and terrorize everything from stores to state fairs to entire neighborhoods. Is it the bad economy? Is it frustration with society's persistent racism?
Please.
What do you think causes them to do this?
First of all, it's free stuff. As we heard a lot of in the riots, it's like, I don't really feel good about this, somebody tweeted, but it's who can say no to free stuff? So it's free stuff, number one. Number two, they're entitled, Scott. They haven't worked, they haven't earned anything in their entire lives. They've been given everything for free for nothing, right? So what difference does it make that if they go in and get this stuff for free for nothing? It's the same philosophy, it's the same mentality. They've never had to work a job, they've never had to own a business, they've never realized what this is doing to the person that owns that business. It's some faceless corporation, 7-Eleven's problem, not their problem. And my response, frankly, to this is my response getting to be all across the board with this kind of lawlessness. I would say to the owner of that convenience store, I would say to 7-Eleven, if this is what happens in that neighborhood, close the store. Close the store. You don't have to take these kind of losses. You shouldn't have to submit to this kind of thing. Close the store.
It'd be nice if they could close the store with the mob still inside, and then the police could just show up and take them all away. Well, Steve, social scientists who study such things can't make a clear correlation between bad economic times and high employment and crime, on the other hand. However, a recent 100-year study of European states by London's Center for Economic Policy Research found that government austerity measures lead to anarchy. In other words, more cuts, more crime. Former London Mayor Ken Livingstone agrees, blaming conservatives there for cutbacks in social services and youth programs that he says sparked riots that set London ablaze. What do you think, Steve?
Well, believe it or not, they might be onto something. You ever seen the old movie where the junkie's trying to kick? He's covered in sweat, he's shaking, he's screaming, he's begging, he's threatening anything to get another hit. Well, that's what dependency on drugs does to a person, and dependency on government it's just as ugly. The symptoms are the same, but you have to throw in rioting along with them. But you know what? There's something wrong here, though, and it puts the lie to Red Ken Livingstone, and it's what Bill just said. One of the London rioters said or tweeted, I can't remember who it was, that it's just because I'm not poor, it doesn't mean I'm not going to take free stuff. These are junkies. These are people with total dependence, and you know what? Zero pride.
Well, of course, asking why they do it is akin to asking, why does Al-Qaeda hate us? Most of us don't care to hear the answer. We just want them to stop doing what they're doing. Philadelphia's Democrat mayor, for example, Michael Nutter, was speaking at Mount Carmel Baptist Church in the city, and he came down hard on parents, especially delinquent dads, and he had this to say to our so-called disaffected youth.
Take those doggone hoodies down, especially in the summer. Pull your pants up and buy a belt, because no one wants to see your underwear or the back of your butt. Nobody. If you walk in somebody's office with your hair uncombed and the pick in the back and your shoes untied and your pants half down, tattoos up and down your arm, on your face, on your neck, and you wonder why somebody won't hire you, they don't hire you because you look like you're crazy.
That never gets old. Bill, Mayor Nutter has set a curfew for youth in Philadelphia, and Philly cops are picking up kids who don't abide by the curfew. But isn't the mayor just blaming the victims of institutional racism and savage inequalities?
I'm not familiar with his background. Presumably he's a Democrat, right? He's an urban Democratic mayor. I will campaign for that man.
Yep.
I'll put out lawn signs for that man. Me, big Mr. White conservative from the upper classes where I live. I will campaign for that guy, because what this guy is speaking is the truth, and it's not a surprise and it's not a mystery that he's speaking it in a church, because that environment that you're seeing right now is the environment that used to hold the black community together and held it together for 200 years of some of the worst conditions that have ever been experienced by human beings. That voice of reason and honesty and adulthood, of fatherhood in a church, saying clearly, this is not a question of why, it is a question of right and wrong, what is the matter with you people, is precisely what's been missing in not only in the black community, but throughout our society at large for the last 50 years. Its return is as simple as having one man with the moral courage to stand up and say what's absolutely true. And the effect will be electric, mark my words, because rioting, like everything else, is a case of the emperor's clothes, the emperor's new clothes. When people point out to them, spare me this nonsense about why you're doing it. It's evil, you're evil, stop it. Stop it now. That's all it takes, Scotty. That's all it takes. God bless that guy, and I hope he runs for president. That's a Democrat I could vote for.
And he's not alone either. You'll notice, in a sense, he was preaching to the choir. When he said, pull your, the congregation said, pants
up. You're
it's
darn
great.
right.
You got to go back. And we'll post the link to that so that everybody can enjoy it. Steve, while many Americans will cheer the mayor's honesty, as Bill has, isn't he actually decrying the results of decades of progressive policies pushed by his own party? And do you think that these flash mobs will help some big government lovers to finally wake up and start measuring results rather than intentions?
Well, you're right about the mayor, but he does seem to be coming around, at least on the cultural side. But you know what? The big government lovers, they can't wake up. You talk about addiction and dependency. If they were going to wake up, you know, shouldn't the Second World War and the Holocaust have done it with, you know, big government fascism, or Stalin's purges in the Gulag, the Berlin Wall, the killing fields of Cambodia? You know, and closer to home, shouldn't the 70s have woken them up? Or how about just a couple of years ago when Fannie and Freddie and easy government credit nearly took down our banking system? There's the bankruptcy of Social Security and Medicare. You know what? You couldn't wake these people up if you put 4 million volts through them to steal a line. The best we can do is just to never, ever, ever, never, ever vote for them.
Let me just say,
Go ahead,
in
Bill.
regards to that, Steve, what he said was, if you don't pull your pants up and get a haircut, basically, no one will hire you. Doesn't matter if you have your pants around your ankles, if you're on the dole, you never leave the house, who gives a damn? He's talking about being hired. He's talking about getting a job. He's talking about working for a living. That is a revolutionary speech in that environment today.
It's a great speech. It's a great speech.
Well, Bill, when the crooks started getting better guns, cops switched from revolvers to Glocks and guns like that, semi-autos, and they put on Kevlar vests. But what can law enforcement do to combat criminals who convene via social media and then scatter like roaches before the squad car can even arrive?
Well, Scotty, I'm going to say something that I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack for. I don't really mean this, but my knee-jerk reaction is what they should resort to is chemical weapons and area denial weapons like Claymore mines and cluster bombs. Here's what it comes down to. When lawlessness is accepted, you will get lawlessness. Lawlessness is the natural state of barbaric man, and it is suppressed by the law. It's suppressed by groups of people who understand that we all live a better life when we agree to follow the rules. When the rule breakers are given the benefit of the doubt, which is exactly what happens when they say, why are they doing this? You've already lost the battle at that point. And the only thing I'll say about the riots and the flash mobs in closing is, they say that this can't happen, these riots won't happen in America because we're armed. But if the person who defends his store with a firearm is then sent to jail for murder, doesn't matter whether you can own a gun or not, right? That's what it's going to come down to in this country.
Bill Whittle's Afterburner is right here on PJTV.com, and you'll love his brief one-topic chats with culture maven Andrew Klavan on Klavan and Whittle. Well, Steve, the San Francisco's Bay Area Rapid Transit announced that it would squelch commuter cell phone signals to stop flash mobs in the subway. Is this prudent protection or another example of capitulating to the terrorists by surrendering our freedoms?
Yeah, that is so the wrong way to go about fixing this problem. Look, criminals always have the initiative. That's just the way it works. The law can't intervene until the bad guys do something bad. So you take away one way for them to rob and steal, and they'll think up a new way. But what about this? Just going to be flash justice. That 7-Eleven clerk in Maryland last week, he hit the panic button. A cop showed up and did nothing until it was all over. He just stood outside. Well, you know what? The guardian angels need an app for that. Better yet, set up a social network of well-armed neighbors. In America, we're our own best first responders. We're Americans, still.
I always felt that middle-aged men in Sansa-belt pants wandering the neighborhood at night would do more to ensure peace and safety on the streets than anything else. That's vodka pundit Stephen Green. He hosts Hair of the Dog, The Weekend Blogs, and Coast to Coast Tea Party here on PJTV.com. If you can't find him on Twitter, you need to surrender your license to tweet. I drove a school bus in Missouri for kids with learning disabilities and behavior disorders. I love those kids. During training, they told us to reward good behavior on the bus by giving out candy on Friday afternoons. Well, one Friday, I forgot to buy the candy. Upon learning this, the kids began to act out in unprecedented and dangerous ways. Cutting candy caused chaos. I stopped the bus. I told them that the reward for obeying the rules was a safe ride, getting home in one piece and on time, and that from now on, I'll buy candy when I please and give it only to express love, not to bribe them into behaving well. Good behavior was their responsibility. A civil society carries its own reward. My so-called learning disabled kids understood. My so-called behavior disordered kids behaved. Making excuses for the bad behavior of the kids in these flash mobs and sheltering them from the consequences sets them up for a lifetime of failure. Setting good boundaries and letting them feel the sting of justice lets children know that we love them. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew on PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.